The mahogany dresser tilted forward in slow motion, its massive weight bearing down on impossibly small shoulders. 7-year-old Lily Ashford's knees buckled against the cold marble floor, her thin arms trembling with effort she could never sustain. The sound that came from her throat was not a scream, but something worse. A sob. Raw and desperate and utterly broken. My back can't take it. Please. I can't. The words cut through the empty hallway like shattered glass, each syllable a small death, a piece of childhood crushed under mahogany and cruelty. Kate Morrison stood over the child with her hand raised high, palm open, mouth twisted into something that might have been rage or might have been satisfaction. The moment froze there, suspended in the amber of terrible possibility. Her shadow fell across Lily like a stain. The girl's face was turned upward, eyes squeezed shut, bracing for impact she had learned to expect, had learned was inevitable, had learned was somehow her fault. Then the front door clicked open. The sound was small, a key turning in expensive hardware, shoes on marble. Normal sounds in a normal home. But they shattered the frozen moment like a hammer through ice. Daniel Ashford stopped breathing. His briefcase hit the floor. The sound echoed through the $1-million house like a gunshot, like the crack of a world breaking in half. His daughter's eyes found him then. Gray eyes. Jennifer's eyes. But filled with something Jennifer's eyes had never held. Terror. Pure and primal and learned. Time split into crystalline fragments, each one cutting deep. Lily's dress, torn at the shoulder, hanging off her thin frame like it was 3 sizes too large. It had fit her 6 months ago. The yellow-green bruise on her forearm, shaped exactly like adult fingers, like someone had grabbed and squeezed and held on too long. Her ribs visible through the thin fabric, every bone countable, collarbones sharp enough to cast shadows in the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows. The way she flinched when she saw him, as if his presence meant more punishment, not salvation, as if fathers were just another source of pain. What the hell is happening here? Daniel's voice came out flat and cold, the tone he used in boardrooms before destroying competitors, before ending careers with a single sentence, before making grown men realize they had underestimated him catastrophically. But his hands were shaking. His heart was a hammer against his ribs. His mind was screaming. Kate spun around, and her face transformed. The rage melted like wax, replaced instantly by concerned surprise, by theatrical shock, by the mask she had worn so perfectly for 14 months that Daniel had never once seen beneath it. Daniel. Oh, thank God you're home. Her voice was honey and relief, concern and affection all blended smooth. Her hand dropped to her chest in a gesture of startled innocence. I didn't hear you arrive. Lily has been so difficult today, so clumsy. She insisted on rearranging the furniture herself despite my warnings. She knocked over the dresser, and I was just about to help her. The words flowed like rehearsed lines, like a script she had perfected through repetition. Each syllable placed just right, each pause calculated for maximum believability. But she's been so stubborn lately. You know how children can be at this age, testing boundaries, refusing to listen. Daniel moved forward, his body acting before his mind fully processed what it was seeing. He gripped the dresser and lifted it off his daughter with ease, muscles remembering the strength of college football years, despite decades behind desks. The weight that had been crushing Lily was nothing to him, less than nothing. Lily scrambled backward the instant the weight released, her small body curling against the wall, making herself smaller. so much smaller than any child should ever try to be. Her breathing came in short gasps. Her hands were pressed flat against the wallpaper, fingers splayed wide, as if she could push herself through the wall itself and disappear. Daniel knelt down slowly, carefully, making himself less threatening, less large, less adult. "Are you hurt, sweetheart? Can you tell Daddy what happened?" Lily stared at him with those huge gray eyes, filled with something that looked like calculation, like careful weighing of risks and consequences. She was 7 years old, and she was doing math in her head, running scenarios, predicting outcomes. Children shouldn't know how to do that. Children should trust automatically, should cry freely, should run to fathers for comfort without hesitation. She glanced at Kate, then back to him. And Daniel saw the decision being made, saw the walls going up behind her gaze, brick by brick, sealing off truth, sealing off trust, sealing off any chance of honesty. "I'm sorry, Daddy." Her voice was so small he had to strain to hear it, had to lean forward, had to hold his breath to catch every whispered word. "I wanted to help Aunt Kate. I thought I could move it by myself. I was being silly. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm fine now. Really, truly fine." The words were wrong, stilted and strange, like dialogue memorized from a script she didn't quite understand, like an apology she had been taught to deliver regardless of circumstance, regardless of fault, regardless of truth. Children didn't talk like that, didn't apologize with such careful precision for things that weren't their mistakes, didn't watch adults with such wary assessment, calculating moods and reactions before speaking. Kate's hand landed on Lily's shoulder with what might have looked like affection to anyone who wasn't watching Lily's face. But Daniel was watching, and he saw the way his daughter's body tensed under that touch, saw the almost imperceptible wince, saw the way she went very still, the way prey goes still when predators are near. She's been having these ambitious phases. Kate's voice was warm, indulgent, the voice of a loving caretaker dealing with a precocious child. Wants to do everything herself. Be a big girl. Help with Owen. Quite exhausting, really. But you know children. They need to learn their limitations. I've been working on teaching her to ask for help before attempting things beyond her capabilities. Daniel looked at his daughter. Really looked at her for the first time in months. Maybe for the first time since Jennifer died. His vision clearing from the fog of grief and work and absence that had clouded his perception for too long. Lily had been 6 when Jennifer died, chubby-cheeked and bright-eyed, full of questions and laughter and endless energy that filled their home with noise and joy and the beautiful chaos of childhood. The child before him now was 7, nearly 8, but looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her spark extinguished like a candle drowned in wax. When had she gotten so thin? Her arms like bird bones, fragile and hollow-looking. When had the light left her eyes, replaced by this watchful weariness, this constant calculation of safety and danger? When had she learned to lie so smoothly, to protect adults from truth, to swallow her own pain in service of keeping peace? Where's Owen? The question came from instinct, from the sudden, terrible certainty that if Lily looked like this, his infant son might be suffering too. The words came out harder than he intended, sharper, carrying the edge of suspicion he hadn't meant to reveal yet. Kate's smile brightened, but something flickered behind her eyes, something fast and dark before the mask reformed, napping in the nursery. He's been sleeping so well lately, such a good baby, barely fusses at all. You'll be so pleased with how well I've managed both children. It's been challenging, of course, with your travel schedule, but we've found our rhythm, haven't we, Lily? Lily nodded. the motion mechanical, programmed. Daniel stood slowly, his decision made in the space between heartbeats. "Lily, sweetheart, why don't you go wash your face and rest in your room for a bit? Daddy needs to talk to Aunt Kate about some boring grown-up things." Lily fled, her small feet silent on the carpet runner, her body disappearing into her bedroom with the speed of someone escaping danger. The door clicked shut with careful quiet. Not a slam, but a whisper. Children who slammed doors got punished. Children who made noise paid for it. Daniel walked upstairs, Kate following, talking, explaining, justifying. Her voice a constant stream of reasonable explanations for unreasonable things. He stopped listening. His mind was focused on the nursery door, on what he might find behind it, on the horrible certainty growing in his gut like poison. Owen was in his crib, 18 months old. Should have been chubby and pink and healthy. Should have been pulling himself up, babbling, reaching for his father with grabby hands and delighted squeals. Daniel lifted his son carefully, his hands large enough to span the tiny torso, and felt his heart crack open. Owen was too light. Far too light. The weight wrong, the feel wrong, everything wrong. Ribs visible through his sleep suit, cheeks hollow instead of baby plump. A diaper rash so severe the skin was raw and angry red, signs of neglect written in every line of his small body. He's probably hungry. Daniel's voice came out steady somehow, betraying none of the rage building in his chest, none of the horror, none of the guilt. He carried Owen downstairs to the kitchen, found formula, mixed a bottle with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't let themselves. Kate hovered, talking, explaining how Owen had always been a small baby, how some children were just naturally petite, how growth charts were just averages after all. Daniel sat in the kitchen chair and offered the bottle to his son. Owen's reaction told him everything he needed to know about the last 14 months. The baby attacked the formula with desperate hunger, sucking frantically, making small whimpering sounds as he drank, his tiny hands clutching the bottle as if afraid it might be taken away. This wasn't normal baby hunger. This was starvation barely held at bay. This was a child who had learned that meals were uncertain things, rationed and withheld, never guaranteed. Children should not eat like they were starving. Not in homes with fully stocked kitchens and pantries full of expensive food. Not when their father was a billionaire who could afford anything, everything, whatever they needed and more. Not under the care of trusted family. The next morning arrived gray and cold, November rain drumming against tall windows. Daniel woke at 5 as always, his body trained by decades of discipline. But instead of checking emails and joining conference calls, he made breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast with butter, orange juice. Simple food prepared by hands more accustomed to signing contracts than cracking eggs. He called for Lily. Her small form appeared in the kitchen doorway like a ghost, hesitant and watchful, her eyes taking in the scene, calculating risk, determining safety levels before entering the room. "Come sit, sweetheart. Let's eat together." She sat. Kate appeared moments later, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, her mask firmly in place. What they did next told Daniel everything about the months he had missed, about the life his children had been living while he flew between continents and closed deals and built empires. Lily ate with frantic urgency, shoving food into her mouth so fast she barely chewed, her eyes darting between Daniel and Kate as if expecting someone to snatch her plate away mid-bite. She didn't savor. She didn't enjoy. She consumed with the single-minded focus of someone who never knew when the next meal might come. Owen, secured in his high chair, did the same with his cut-up eggs. But worse. He hoarded food in his cheeks like a squirrel preparing for winter, hiding pieces, creating reserves, operating on instinct that said resources must be protected at all costs. "How often does Lily eat?" Daniel kept his voice casual, conversational, betraying none of the screaming happening inside his skull. 3 meals a day, of course. Kate's answer came smooth and practiced, delivered with just the right amount of concern. Though she's been picky lately, refuses to finish her portions. I've been concerned about her appetite, actually. Children can be so difficult about food. Jennifer used to worry about her eating habits, too. Remember? The invocation of Jennifer's name was designed to create alliance, to remind Daniel that Kate was family, was Jennifer's sister, was connected by blood and love to the woman he had lost. When Daniel gave Lily seconds, she stared at him with such shocked, disbelieving gratitude that something inside him shattered beyond repair. Her eyes filled with tears, she blinked back quickly. Her hand reached for the plate as if touching treasure, as if receiving gold. "Can I really have more?" The question was barely audible, full of wonder and fear in equal measure, as if abundance was a trick, as if generosity would be snatched away and punished. "Of course you can, baby. You can have as much as you want, always." He reached across the table for the salt shaker near Owen's plate. The movement was casual, unthreatening, routine. But Owen flinched. His whole body jerked backward, his arms came up defensively, his face scrunched in anticipation of pain. The reaction lasted only a second before the baby relaxed. But Daniel saw it. And knew. That afternoon, while Kate was in her room and the children napped, Daniel made a phone call. Dr. Sarah Chen had been Jennifer's best friend since medical school, had been maid of honor at their wedding, had held Jennifer's hand through chemotherapy and radiation, had been there the day she died. She was also the children's pediatrician. "I need you to come to the house. Private consultation. No appointment book entry, no records, just come." She heard something in his voice. Arrived within 2 hours, medical bag in hand, face creased with concern. Her examination took place in the master bedroom with the door locked. She was thorough and increasingly grim, her professional detachment unable to hide the anger building behind her eyes. When she finished, she sat across from Daniel in his study and delivered her findings with careful precision. "Lily is significantly underweight. Malnutrition evident. I can see ribs, hip bones, shoulder blades that shouldn't be this prominent in a healthy child. Multiple bruises in various stages of healing. Yellow, green, purple, brown, different ages. Patterns consistent with grabbing and restraining. Defensive injuries on her forearms where she's been blocking blows. She flinched when I touched her back. Something happened there. Something bad." Her voice remained steady, but her hands were clenched. "Owen is also underweight. Severe diaper rash that's been untreated for days at minimum. Signs of neglect everywhere. Inadequate feeding obvious from his growth charts. He's fallen off his curve entirely." Both children are exhibiting behavioral indicators of abuse, fear responses, hypervigilance. Lily particularly shows signs of traumatic conditioning. She's been taught to minimize, to accept blame, to protect her abuser. Classic pattern. Daniel felt each word like a physical blow, each one a confirmation of what he had been trying not to see, not to believe, not to accept. "I need you to document everything. Photographs, measurements, written report, official medical record. I need evidence. I need proof." Dr. Chen nodded slowly, her jaw tight. "I'm a mandatory reporter, Daniel. I have to file with child services. The injuries and neglect I've documented require intervention by law." "File it." His answer came immediately, without hesitation, without concern for scandal or privacy or reputation. Nothing mattered except his children's safety. That afternoon, while Kate supervised the children's quiet time, Daniel remembered something Jennifer had taught Lily: a secret hiding place for treasures. A loose floorboard beneath the bed in her room. Jennifer had been a child who kept secrets, who needed private places, who understood the value of things hidden away from adult eyes. Daniel knelt on the floor of his daughter's room and pried up the board with careful fingers. Inside the small space was a notebook. Cheap spiral-bound, decorated with unicorns and rainbows, given to Lily by Jennifer weeks before the cancer finally won. A diary. He took it to his study, locked the door, sat in the leather chair that had cost $5,000 and meant nothing. Nothing at all compared to what he was about to read. The first entry was dated April. 2 months after Kate moved in. 2 months after Daniel had buried Jennifer and retreated into work and grief and cowardice. He read in chronological order his daughter's careful printing telling a story that made his stomach turn, made his hands shake, made tears fall for the first time since Jennifer's funeral. October 3rd. Aunt Kate says I ate too much breakfast, so no lunch today. My tummy hurts, but I can't say or she gets mad. I miss Mama. Mama would give me snacks. October 10th. I dropped a plate, and it broke. Aunt Kate hit my hands with the spoon 6 times. My fingers are purple. I told Daddy on video call I hurt them playing. I don't want him to worry. He looked so tired and sad. October 17th. Owen was crying because he was hungry. Aunt Kate said, let him cry. Babies need to learn. I snuck him my bread when she wasn't looking. I'm still hungry, but Owen is littler. The entries continued. Months of suffering compressed into childish handwriting and misspelled words. A 7-year-old shouldering burdens no adult should bear, making sacrifices no child should understand, protecting a baby brother while starving herself. October 24th. Aunt Kate says if I tell Daddy anything bad, she will send Owen away to an orphanage, and I'll never see him again. She says Daddy will believe her, not me because I'm just a kid and she's a grown-up. I believe her. I'm so scared. I miss Mama so much. Mama, please help me from heaven. Daniel's vision blurred. The words swam on the page. He was crying now, truly crying, sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded, from the place where fathers keep their failures and their guilt. More entries followed, each one worse than the last. November 2nd. Tommy was crying hungry. I gave him my bread. Aunt Kate locked me in the dark room. I sang Mommy's song so I wouldn't be scared. November 7th. I tried to call the number at school, but Aunt Kate found the paper. She broke my special bracelet, the one Mommy gave me. She said Mommy's not watching anymore. But I think Mommy is. I hope she is. The final entry was dated yesterday. I'm trying so hard to be good, to be quiet, to not make Aunt Kate angry. If I'm perfect, maybe Daddy will want to stay home. Maybe he'll love me enough to not leave anymore. I just have to try harder, be smaller, be quieter, be better. The notebook fell from Daniel's hands. He sat in his expensive chair, in his expensive study, in his expensive house, and understood that he had failed. Catastrophically. Completely. His daughter had been screaming for help in the only way she could, had been protecting her brother, had been surviving day by day while Daniel flew to Beijing and Tokyo and London and anywhere that wasn't here, that wasn't home, that wasn't where his children were being destroyed. I failed you. He said it out loud to the empty room, to Jennifer's memory, to God if God was listening. I failed them. I failed you, I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry was just a word. Sorry was what you said when you bumped into someone at the grocery store, not what you said when you had abandoned your children to a monster wearing your dead wife's face. He picked up his phone with shaking hands. Made a call. His voice when he spoke was steady somehow, cold and controlled. The voice of a man who had made a decision and would not be moved from it. I need everything you have on Kate Morrison. Financial records, background check, criminal history, if any, employment records. Everything. I need it yesterday. Then he made another call, this one to his attorney. James, I need to see you today, now if possible. It's about the children. I need legal advice, custody advice, evidence collection, everything. The questions came. Daniel answered them all. When he hung up, he sat for a long moment in the dimness of his study and made promises. I will fix this. I will make it right. I will burn the world down if necessary to keep them safe. Whoever hurt you will pay for every bruise, every hungry night, every moment of terror. Then he went upstairs. Found Lily in her room, curled on her bed with a book she wasn't reading, just staring at pages while her mind went somewhere else. He knocked softly before entering. She startled anyway. Always startled now. Always afraid. Hey, baby, can Daddy sit with you? She nodded. He sat on the edge of her bed, careful to keep distance, to not crowd her, to let her feel safe. I found something today, in your special hiding place. Fear flashed across her face. Her whole body tensed. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. No. You could never be in trouble for this. Never. He pulled the diary from his pocket, held it gently. I read it. I know what's been happening, and I need you to know that none of this is your fault. None of it. Do you understand me? Aunt Kate was wrong. She hurt you, and that's not okay. It's never okay. Lily's lip trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. But I wasn't good enough. I tried, but I wasn't good enough, and you left, and Kate said it was because I was too much work, and if I was better you'd stay. The words came out in a rush, all the poison she'd been storing finally spilling free. Daniel pulled her into his arms, held her while she cried, let her soak his shirt with tears and snot and grief. I left because I was sad about Mama, and I made a terrible mistake. I left when I should have stayed. I trusted someone I shouldn't have trusted. I failed you and Owen, and I'm so sorry. But that's my fault. My mistake. Not yours. Never yours. They sat like that until the tears stopped, until Lily's breathing evened out, until some of the tension left her small body. When she finally pulled back, Daniel looked her in the eyes. I'm going to fix this. Aunt Kate is going to go away. She's never going to hurt you again. Do you believe me? Lily searched his face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, Daddy. I believe you. That evening, Daniel went through the house with new eyes, seeing everything he had missed. The locked drawer in Kate's room that shouldn't be locked. The folder tucked behind books on her shelf. The laptop she kept password protected. He broke into the drawer with tools from the garage. Inside was correspondence with an attorney, emails printed out, a custody petition nearly ready to file, bank statements showing withdrawals from the children's accounts, transfers to Kate's personal accounts, theft, systematic, calculated theft. He found the laptop, knew her password because Kate thought she was clever, but wasn't clever enough. Inside was email after email detailing her plan, her strategy, her long game. Just 6 more months until I can file for custody. Prove Daniel is an absent father. Get the kids. Get access to their trust fund. $5 million. Worth putting up with the brats a while longer. Another email to a friend. Jennifer always was the golden child. Got everything. The perfect husband, the money, the fairy tale life. Well, she's dead now, and I'm going to take what should have been mine all along. There was more, so much more. A trail of greed and resentment and carefully plotted revenge against a dead woman, carried out against innocent children who had the misfortune of being born to someone Kate envied. Daniel copied everything, backed it up 3 times, sent copies to his attorney, to his private investigator, to his personal email. Evidence that would stand up in any court. Then he remembered the security system. Cameras installed throughout the house after Jennifer died, when Daniel had been paranoid about break-ins, about losing anything else, about having his home invaded the way cancer had invaded his wife's body. He'd forgotten about them, had never checked the footage, had assumed they were just recording over themselves endlessly. He pulled up the security system on his computer, selected the camera for the second-floor hallway, chose a date at random from 3 months ago. Pressed play. What he saw made him close the laptop and walk away before he did something he'd regret. But he forced himself to come back, to watch, to document, to see what his children had endured while he was on planes and in meetings, and anywhere but here. The footage showed Kate slapping Lily across the face for spilling water, showed her dragging Lily to the basement and locking her in, the child's screams audible through the door, showed meals where Kate ate full plates while giving Lily scraps, showed Owen crying in his crib for hours while Kate sat downstairs watching television, showed Lily scrubbing floors on her knees, the tile leaving marks, blood seeping through her dress, showed Kate on the phone laughing, saying things that made Daniel's blood turn to ice. Just a few more months until I can file for custody. Once I get access to that trust fund, these brats will have earned their keep. Jennifer owed me this. She got everything, and I got nothing. Well, now it's my turn. He watched for 3 hours, compiled footage, selected the worst moments, built a case that no defense attorney could argue against. When he was done, he sat in the darkness of his study and made a phone call. I need to see you tomorrow. First thing. Bring everything. We're moving forward. The next 2 weeks passed in careful choreography. Daniel pretended normalcy. Went to work but came home early. Spent time with the children. Let Kate think everything was fine while he built his case behind closed doors. Investigators dug into Kate's past, found sealed juvenile records, petitioned the court to unseal them, found out that Kate had been removed from an abusive home at 14, had been placed in foster care, had been accused of abusing younger children in her foster home, had been labeled by psychologists as high risk for perpetuating cycles of abuse. Jennifer had never known. The records had been sealed before the sisters reconnected as adults. Kate had presented herself as healed, as changed, as someone who had overcome her past. Jennifer had believed her because Jennifer believed in redemption, believed people could change, believed in giving second chances. More investigators found witnesses. The neighbor who had called CPS 4 months ago. The CPS caseworker who had closed the case after a single visit because the house was clean and Kate was articulate and wealthy families don't abuse their children. The teacher who had noticed Lily's weight loss and falling asleep in class. The mailman who had seen bruises. The grocery delivery driver who had witnessed Lily grabbing food and eating it raw. Everyone had seen something. No one had done enough. Finally, 2 weeks after Daniel had come home early, after he had discovered the truth, after his world had tilted sideways into something unrecognizable, he was ready. He invited Kate to his study for a conversation about the children's care. She came with a smile, sat in the chair across from his desk, crossed her legs elegantly. She had no idea what was coming. The study was quiet, except for the sound of rain against tall windows. Daniel sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, face carefully neutral. Across from him, Kate Morrison settled into the leather chair with the confidence of someone who believed herself untouchable, someone who had worn her mask so long she thought it had become her face. Behind the closed door, in the adjacent room, James Crawford sat with a recording device and a detective from the Boston Police Department. Waiting, listening, ready. Daniel had orchestrated this moment with the same precision he brought to billion-dollar acquisitions. Every detail calculated, every variable accounted for, every exit blocked. "I need you to know I've been doing some investigating." His voice was calm, conversational. The tone you'd use to discuss the weather or the stock market. But Kate heard something underneath. Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before reforming. The children's condition, Lily's injuries, Owen's malnutrition. "I needed to understand how this happened under your care. Daniel, I understand you're concerned." Kate leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on the quality of someone explaining simple things to a confused child. Any father would be. But children are fragile. They bruise easily. Lily is clumsy and dramatic. She exaggerates. You know how she is. Always wanting attention, always making mountains out of molehills. "I have footage." The words landed like stones in still water. Kate's face went very still. Daniel turned his laptop around, pressed play. The screen filled with images from the second-floor hallway camera. Date stamped, time stamped, undeniable. Kate watched herself slap Lily across the face, watched herself drag the child to the basement door, watched herself lock it while Lily's small fists pounded against wood. The audio picked up everything. The screams, the pleading, the eventual silence that was somehow worse than the crying. Another clip. The kitchen. Kate eating a full meal while Lily sat across from her with a single piece of bread and a glass of water. The child's eyes following every bite Kate took, hunger written across her small face like grief. Another. Owen in his crib, crying. The timestamp showed 2 hours passing. Kate never came. The baby's cries grew hoarse, then stopped. He learned that crying brought nothing. That need was irrelevant, that no one was coming. The final clip. Kate on her phone, voice bright and laughing. "Just need to maintain this for 6 more months until I can file for custody. Once I get access to that trust fund, these brats will have earned their keep. $5 million. Worth putting up with them a while longer." Daniel stopped the playback. The silence in the room was absolute. "That's illegal surveillance." Kate's voice had changed. The honey was gone. Something harder underneath now. Something metallic and cold. "I didn't consent to being recorded. You can't use that. It won't hold up in court." The door opened. James Crawford stepped through, followed by Detective Marcus Stone. Both men carried the weight of authority, of law, of consequences finally arriving. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state for surveillance in private homes. Crawford's voice was bored, precise, the voice of someone who had explained this 1,000 times to 1,000 criminals who thought they'd found a loophole. Mr. Ashford owns the home. He can record anything within it. And that footage is admissible evidence in both criminal and civil proceedings, which we will be pursuing on behalf of the children. Kate stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against hardwood like nails on slate. The mask was falling now, cracking, pieces of it scattering across the expensive rug. "You ungrateful bastard." The words came out in a hiss, venom finally allowed to flow free after months of careful containment. "I gave up my life to care for your brats. I sacrificed everything after Jennifer died. Everything. I was here when you weren't. I did the work you were too selfish and self-important to do yourself. And this is how you repay me? With accusations and threats?" Her voice was rising now, volume increasing with each sentence, years of resentment finally finding release. Those children needed discipline, needed structure, needed someone to actually raise them instead of spoiling them rotten. You would have destroyed them with your guilt and your money and your absence. I was trying to save them from becoming entitled little monsters who think the world owes them something. You starved them. Daniel's voice cut through her tirade like a blade through silk. He stood now, his full height suddenly relevant, suddenly intimidating. The physical presence he rarely needed to use in boardrooms, but which he would use now without hesitation. You hit Lily. You locked her in the basement. You made her terrified in her own home. You stole from accounts meant for their care. You traumatized children who had already lost their mother, who were already grieving and vulnerable. And you did it for money, for control, for your own sick satisfaction. "I did what Jennifer would have wanted," Kate was shouting now, her face contorted with fury, and something that looked almost like genuine belief, delusion wrapped in righteousness. She knew Lily needed a firm hand, knew you would spoil her, ruin her. "I was honoring my sister's wishes, raising them properly, raising them the way children should be raised, with discipline and consequences, and an understanding that the world doesn't revolve around them. Jennifer would have destroyed you for touching Lily." Daniel's voice dropped to something deadly quiet, something that made Kate step backward instinctively, made Crawford's hand move toward his phone, made the detective shift his weight forward. "She would have torn you apart with her bare hands for hurting her babies. Don't you dare invoke her name to justify abuse. Don't you dare use my wife's memory as an excuse for cruelty." Crawford dropped a file on the desk. The sound was loud in the charged silence. Papers spilled out. Bank statements. Email printouts. Legal documents. Your custody petition, filed 3 weeks ago with Suffolk County Family Court. Emails with your attorney about strategies for proving Daniel unfit. Financial records showing $73,000 stolen from household accounts over 14 months. All documented. All admissible. All more than enough for criminal prosecution. He dropped another file. Your bankruptcy filing from 18 months ago. $200,000 in debt, gambling, credit cards, medical bills. You approached Jennifer begging for a loan 6 months before she died. She refused. Said you needed to handle your own problems, that she and Daniel had already helped you twice before, and you'd squandered it. Kate's face had gone white, the color draining like water from a sink, leaving something gray and sick underneath. Then there's this. Crawford pulled out a printed email. Read it aloud in that same bored, professional voice. To Melissa Chen, dated 6 months ago, quote, "Jennifer died, and I'm supposed to feel sad. She had everything. The rich husband, the money, the perfect life I deserved. Well, now she's gone, and I'm going to take what should have been mine. Those kids are my ticket to the trust fund. Just need custody and access. Then I can finally live the life Jennifer stole from me." End quote. Kate said nothing. Her hands gripped her purse like a lifeline, knuckles white, breathing rapid and shallow. This was never about love. Daniel's voice was flat now, emotionless, the feeling drained out and replaced by something harder. This was about money, about resentment, about punishing Jennifer through her children because you couldn't punish her anymore. You saw vulnerable kids, and you saw opportunity. You saw a way to cash in on your dead sister's trust fund. There was a knock at the door. Right on time. Daniel had choreographed this down to the minute. 2 uniformed officers entered. 1 male, 1 female. Both with the tired eyes of people who had seen too much, done this too many times, arrested too many people who hurt children. "You're having me arrested?" Kate's voice was disbelief and outrage in equal measure, as if her family connection should have purchased immunity, as if love of a dead sister should have excused the torture of that sister's children. "I'm having you charged with child abuse, child neglect, theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and anything else my lawyers can make stick." Daniel moved around the desk, put himself between Kate and the door, blocked any path of retreat. "You will never see my children again. You will never profit from your crimes. You will spend years in prison thinking about what you did, about the innocents you hurt, about the trust you violated. Kate Morrison, you're under arrest." The female officer moved forward with handcuffs. Read writes in that practiced monotone that said she'd done this 1,000 times, would do it 1,000 more. The cuffs clicked closed around Kate's wrists. The sound was final, irreversible. The end of 14 months of carefully constructed lies. Kate's mask shattered completely then. What came through was ugly and raw and honest for the first time. "I loved them." Her voice broke on the words, tears streaming now, real emotion finally visible beneath the performance. More than Jennifer ever did. "I was the one here. I was the one doing the work. You were just a checkbook. Just money. I gave them structure and discipline and everything they needed to survive in the real world. And you destroyed that. You destroyed everything." She turned her head as the officers led her toward the door, looked at Daniel one last time. Her eyes were full of venom and broken things. "They're damaged now. You'll never undo what I did to them. They'll remember me every time they eat, every time they're alone, every time they try to trust someone. I'm in their heads forever. You can't erase me." Then, she was gone. Led down the marble staircase where Lily had cowered. Out the front door where Daniel had arrived too late. Into a police car that would take her to a cell where masks didn't matter anymore. Daniel stood in his study and felt nothing. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Just emptiness. Just the weight of 14 months that couldn't be undone. Then he heard small footsteps on the stairs. Lily appeared in the doorway. She'd been on the landing. Had heard everything. Had witnessed the arrest. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes were clear. Clearer than they'd been in months. "She's really gone?" The question was barely a whisper. "She's really gone. And she's never coming back. It's just us now. Forever." Lily ran then, crossed the distance between them, and threw herself into his arms with a force that nearly knocked him backward. Sobs racked her small body, huge wrenching sounds that came from somewhere deep and wounded. Relief and grief and terror and hope all mixed together into something too big for words. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I tried to be good. I tried so hard. I'm sorry." Daniel dropped to his knees, held his daughter while she cried, let her tears soak his shirt, and her pain pour out in gasping waves. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. Do you hear me? None of this is your fault. Daddy's sorry. Daddy should have seen, should have known, should have protected you. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Owen appeared then, tottering in with the uncertainty of someone who felt the emotional weight but didn't understand its source. Daniel pulled him close with his other arm, held both children, made silent promises to the air, to Jennifer's memory, to whatever gods might be listening. I will make this right. I will fix what's broken. I will be the father you deserve. That night, Lily asked to sleep in his room. He made a nest of blankets on the floor beside his bed, settled both children close where he could hear them breathe, where they could see him if they woke, scared, or hurting. He lay awake, listening to them sleep, making plans, building strategies, preparing for the war that was coming. The next 3 months passed in careful preparation. Evidence gathered like ammunition. Witnesses located and interviewed. Medical records compiled into damning testimony. Financial crimes traced through bank accounts and credit cards and withdrawal slips signed in Kate's distinctive handwriting. The private investigator, Marcus Stone, worked with the efficiency of someone who specialized in ugly truths. He found Kate's sealed juvenile records, petitioned the court to unseal them, presented Daniel with the file that made the current charges seem almost inevitable. Kate Morrison had been removed from her mother's home at 14. Severe abuse, documented by social workers who arrived too late, found a child with cigarette burns and belt marks and fractures in various stages of healing. She'd been placed in foster care with a family that had 2 younger children. Within 6 months, those children were showing signs of abuse, finger-shaped bruises, fear responses, regression in behavior and development. Kate had been removed again, placed in a group home. Psych evaluations from that time painted a disturbing picture. A child who had been victimized now victimizing others. The cycle of abuse playing out in real time. Therapists noted her inability to feel empathy, her tendency to rationalize cruelty as discipline, her deep-seated resentment toward anyone who had what she perceived as a better life. Jennifer had never known. The records were sealed by the time the sisters reconnected as adults. Kate had presented herself as healed, as someone who had overcome her past through therapy and determination and personal growth. She'd lied. About everything. Stone found more. The neighbor who had called Child Protective Services 4 months before Daniel discovered the truth. Mrs. Chen, 82 years old, living next door, watching from her window as Lily took out garbage in November cold, wearing only a thin dress, hearing crying that went on for hours, making the call that should have saved them but didn't. The CPS caseworker who had responded was young, overworked, underpaid. She'd visited the house, found it immaculate, interviewed Kate, who was articulate and charming and entirely convincing. She'd looked at the wealth, at the expensive furniture, and the prestigious address, and made assumptions. Rich people don't abuse their children. Rich people hire nannies if they're overwhelmed. Rich people have resources. The case was closed as unfounded, the report buried in files that no one would check until Stone came asking questions with a court order and a mandate to find the truth. Stone found Lily's teacher. Mrs. Rodriguez had taught 2nd grade for 23 years, had seen thousands of children pass through her classroom, had developed instincts about which ones were struggling at home. Lily had triggered every alarm. The weight loss was dramatic. 10 pounds between September and December. Falling asleep at her desk despite going to bed early according to Kate's reports. Eating her entire lunch plus anything other children didn't finish with a desperation that spoke to hunger at home. Withdrawing from friends, losing interest in activities she'd loved. Classic signs of a child in crisis. Rodriguez had sent notes home, had requested parent-teacher conferences. Kate had come to everyone, had explanations for everything. Lily was picky about food, picky, going through a phase, staying up late reading when she was supposed to sleep. Normal childhood behaviors blown out of proportion by an overly concerned teacher. Then Lily had tried to give Rodriguez a note. Small piece of paper folded tiny, pressed into the teacher's hand during recess, with desperate eyes and a whispered plea. Please don't let Aunt Kate see. Rodriguez had unfolded it in her classroom after the children left. Read 3 sentences in a 7-year-old's careful printing. Please help me. Aunt Kate hurts me. Owen is hungry. She'd kept the note. Had agonized over what to do. Had mentioned it to Kate when she came to pick Lily up that afternoon, framing it as concern, as wanting to understand the family dynamics, as trying to help. Kate had smiled, had thanked her for bringing it to her attention, had explained that Lily was acting out, wanting attention, struggling with her mother's death in ways that sometimes manifested as fabrication, had promised to get Lily more counseling, more support. Rodriguez had believed her. Rich families were complicated. Nannies and guardians and custody arrangements she didn't fully understand. And Kate was so articulate, so concerned, so clearly trying her best. The note was still in Rodriguez's desk drawer, wrinkled and tear-stained, evidence of a child's desperate attempt to be saved and an adult's failure to act. Stone brought the note to Daniel. Let him hold it. Let him see his daughter's handwriting asking for help that never came. Daniel sat in his study and understood that the system had failed, that everyone had failed, that wealth had been a shield that protected Kate and endangered the children. More witnesses came forward once the investigation became public. The mailman who had delivered packages and seen bruises, the grocery delivery driver who had witnessed Lily grab bread and eat it raw, the woman from the dry cleaners who had noticed how thin Owen was, how his clothes hung off his small frame. Everyone had seen something. No one had done enough. James Crawford built the case with meticulous care. Every piece of evidence documented and verified, every witness interviewed and prepared, every legal precedent researched and cited. He was building something that would withstand appeals and defense tactics, and every attempt Kate's expensive lawyer would make to create reasonable doubt. Because Kate had hired Robert Jameson. $800 an hour. Former prosecutor turned defense attorney. Known for taking difficult cases and winning them through aggressive cross-examination and manipulation of jury sympathy. He would paint Kate as a victim herself, would argue overwhelming circumstances and good intentions gone wrong, would try to put Daniel on trial for his absence. Crawford prepared counter-strategies, anticipated every argument, built walls around the evidence that no defense could breach. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Chen worked with Lily twice a week in sessions that slowly, painfully began to unlock the trauma. Play therapy first. Dolls and dollhouses and gentle questions about how the dolls felt, what the dolls were afraid of. Lily spoke through the dolls things she couldn't say in her own voice. The girl doll was scared of the aunt doll. The baby doll was always hungry. The daddy doll was gone on an airplane that never landed. Weeks passed before Lily could speak directly about what had happened. Dr. Chen was patient, experienced. She'd worked with abused children for 20 years, knew that pushing too hard caused retreat, that trauma had to be unpacked slowly, that healing measured itself in tiny increments, invisible to anyone who wasn't paying close attention. The breakthrough came in week 6. Lily was drawing. She'd filled pages with images. Dark basements, empty plates, angry faces. Dr. Chen sat beside her. Not commenting, just present. Whose fault is it that Aunt Kate hurt you? The question was gentle, casual, as if the answer didn't matter desperately. Lily stopped drawing, looked at her hands. Mine. I wasn't good enough. What if I told you it's never a child's fault when an adult hurts them? Lily was quiet for a long time. Her crayon moved across paper in slow circles. But Daddy left because I was too much work. Aunt Kate said so. She said if I was better, he'd stay home. Did Daddy tell you that? No. Aunt Kate did. And Aunt Kate lied about many things, didn't she? Lily's hand stopped moving. Tears welled in her gray eyes. Yes. That single word was progress, was the beginning of understanding, was the first crack in the structure of lies that Kate had built in Lily's mind. The sessions continued. Slowly, Lily began to separate truth from manipulation, began to understand that her father's absence was about his grief, not her worth, that Kate's cruelty was about Kate's damage, not Lily's failures, that asking for help was brave, not weak, that speaking truth protected others. Daniel attended every session, sat in the waiting room reading files and answering emails, but always present, always there when Lily emerged. Small, consistent proof that he wouldn't leave again, that she could count on him, that fathers didn't have to disappear. He'd made changes, big ones. He'd promoted his COO to CEO, taken the title of chairman, which required minimal travel and maximum flexibility, restructured his entire life around school drop-off and pickup, around homework help and bedtime stories, around being present in the 1,000 small ways that mattered more than money or success or empire building. The company's stock price took a hit. The board expressed concerns. Shareholders questioned his commitment. Daniel didn't care. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't care about quarterly earnings or market share or competitive advantages. He cared about Lily's nightmares decreasing from 7 nights a week to 4, about Owen starting to sleep through the night, about small hands reaching for his without hesitation. 2 weeks before the trial, Crawford asked the question that had been hanging unspoken. Lily's testimony would be powerful, would probably be the deciding factor for the jury. But she's 7 years old. It will be traumatic. Cross-examination will be brutal. Jameson will try to discredit her, suggest she's been coached, make her doubt herself on the stand. It's your decision. And hers. Daniel talked to Lily that evening after dinner. Sat with her in her room surrounded by stuffed animals and books, and all the trappings of a childhood trying to reassemble itself. Baby, the lawyers want you to talk to the jury, to tell them what Aunt Kate did. But you don't have to. Daddy has lots of evidence. We can win without you having to go through that. Lily was quiet for a long time. She picked at a loose thread on her bedspread. 7 years old, and being asked to make decisions no child should face. Will other kids be safe? If I don't tell? We'll make sure she can't hurt anyone else. But will the jury believe she's really bad? Or will they think she was nice and you're lying? Daniel felt his chest tighten. His daughter was asking questions that went to the heart of everything, understanding that her voice mattered, that truth needed witnesses. Your testimony would help them understand. But you're so young. It's a big, scary thing to ask of you. Lily looked at him with those gray eyes that were so much like Jennifer's. It hurt. Mommy used to say, brave people aren't the ones who aren't scared. They're the ones who are scared but do it anyway. I'm really scared, Daddy, but I want to do it, so she can't hurt other kids. Daniel pulled her close, held her while tears he couldn't stop fell into her hair. You're the bravest person I know. The final week before trial passed in a blur of preparation. Prosecutor Catherine Price met with Lily multiple times. Used dolls and gentle questions and practice sessions that built comfort with the process. Explained courtroom layouts and jury boxes and where Daddy would sit so she could see him. Prepared her for cross-examination with mock questions that sounded mean, but were designed to inoculate her against the real thing. Lily practiced answering, learned to pause before speaking, to say "I don't understand" if questions were confusing, to tell the truth, simply without elaboration, to look at the jury when she spoke, to remember that none of this was her fault. Dr. Chen worked on coping strategies, breathing exercises, visualization techniques, safe places Lily could go in her mind if things became overwhelming, an anchor word she could use to ground herself, permission to ask for breaks if she needed them. Daniel prepared himself to watch his daughter testify, to sit in that courtroom and hear her describe horrors he'd failed to prevent, to remain calm and supportive when every instinct would scream to grab her and run, to end this, to protect her from reliving trauma in front of strangers. Sunday evening, the night before the trial. Daniel made dinner for his children. Simple food: mac and cheese, carrot sticks, apple slices. They ate together at the kitchen table in the house they'd moved to after selling the Beacon Hill mansion. This house was smaller, warmer, full of light. No bad memories embedded in its walls. Lily picked at her food, nervous energy making her movements sharp and quick. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you did the brave thing. And I'm proud of you." Owen piped up in his small voice, words still clumsy but earnest. "Lily brave like superhero." His sister managed a small smile. "I don't feel like superhero. I feel scared. You know what Mommy told me once? Courage isn't not being scared. Courage is being scared and doing it anyway. Tomorrow you're going to be so courageous. And Mommy's watching. I know she is. And she's so proud." That night, Daniel sat by Lily's bed until she fell asleep. Read her favorite books, held her hand, whispered promises into the darkness. When she finally slept, he went to his own room and sat by the window looking out at the Cambridge street below. Made final promises to Jennifer's memory. Tomorrow, we get justice. Tomorrow she answers for everything. Tomorrow our daughter stands up and tells the truth, and the world listens. Tomorrow everything changes. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. November had given way to December, and Boston wore its winter-like armor, all sharp edges and unforgiving stone. The Suffolk County Courthouse rose against the pale sky, its columns like sentinels guarding scales that Daniel prayed would tip toward truth, toward justice, toward some measure of restoration for children who had been broken by someone they should have been able to trust. The courtroom filled early. Media had caught wind of the case, and the story had all the elements they craved. Wealthy executive, dead wife, abused children, family betrayal. The kind of narrative that sold papers and generated clicks and kept people watching through commercial breaks. Daniel hated them for it, even as he understood their presence would ensure Kate couldn't disappear into some plea deal negotiated in backroom conversations between lawyers who cared more about efficiency than justice. He sat in the front row with victim's advocate Maria Santos on his left and empty space on his right, where Lily would sit when she wasn't testifying. Owen was with Dr. Chen in a waiting room designed for children, full of toys and books and distractions from the adult business of holding monsters accountable. Kate entered through a side door flanked by deputies. She wore a conservative navy dress and minimal makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple style. Robert Jameson had coached her well. Look sympathetic. Look overwhelmed. Look like someone who made mistakes born of desperation rather than malice. Look human. She didn't look at Daniel, kept her eyes forward as she sat at the defense table beside her $800 an hour attorney who had built a career on making juries doubt their own certainty. Judge Maria Santos took the bench. 60 years old, former prosecutor, known for running a tight courtroom and having zero tolerance for theatrical nonsense. She surveyed the packed gallery with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The jury filed in. 12 people selected after 3 days of voir dire designed to eliminate anyone with strong bias in either direction. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from late 20s to early 60s. A teacher, an accountant, a retired nurse, a construction worker, a librarian, a software engineer. Regular people who would hear evidence and make a decision that would shape the rest of multiple lives. Catherine Price stood for the prosecution. 45 years old, 20-year veteran of the DA's office, specialist in child abuse cases. She approached them with missionary zeal born from her own childhood trauma, though she never mentioned that in court. Her past informed her present, but didn't define it. She was professional, thorough, relentless. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Her voice carried through the courtroom without straining. Trained to project, to command attention, to make every word count, this case is about trust betrayed in the most horrific way imaginable. When Jennifer Ashford died of cancer 14 months ago, she left behind 2 small children. Lily, age 6. Owen, 18 months. Her husband Daniel was drowning in grief, struggling to keep his company running, trying to hold together a life that had shattered around him. Price walked slowly toward the jury box, made eye contact with each member individually. Kate Morrison offered to help. She was Jennifer's sister. Family. Someone Daniel trusted because why wouldn't he? She was blood, she was there, she claimed to love these children. Her voice hardened. But over the next 14 months, Kate Morrison systematically abused these children. She starved them, beat them, terrorized them, locked a 7-year-old girl in a dark basement for hours as punishment, made an infant go hungry because she watered down his formula to save money, money she was stealing from the very accounts meant to provide for these children's care. She paused. Let that sink in. You will see medical evidence of malnutrition. Growth charts that show Lily losing 18% of her body weight in 6 months. Bruises in various stages of healing. Patterns consistent with inflicted injury, not accidental harm. You will see security footage from cameras in the Ashford home that captured months of abuse in undeniable detail. Price's voice softened slightly. You will hear from Lily herself. A child who will sit in that witness chair and tell you in her own words what it was like to live in fear every single day, to go to bed hungry, to try desperately to protect her baby brother while being punished for caring, to believe that her father's absence was her fault because that's what her abuser told her. She turned, gestured toward Kate without looking at her. And you will see emails, financial records, and recorded statements proving this was never about a struggling caretaker overwhelmed by circumstances. This was about money, about resentment, about a calculated plan to gain custody of these children in order to access their $5 million trust fund. Price walked back to her table, turned to face the jury one final time. When you've heard all the evidence, I will ask you to find Kate Morrison guilty of every single charge, not because we want vengeance, but because that's what justice demands. That's what these children deserve. She sat. The courtroom held its collective breath. Robert Jameson rose, tall, silver-haired, expensive suit cut to perfection, grandfatherly smile firmly in place. The mask he wore was different from Kate's, but no less practiced. "The prosecution wants you to believe my client is a monster, that she woke up every morning choosing cruelty, that she targeted vulnerable children with malicious intent." His voice was warm, reasonable, inviting the jury to see complexity where Price had drawn clear lines. But the real story is far more complicated than that simple narrative. Kate Morrison is herself a survivor of horrific childhood abuse. She was beaten daily by her mother. Removed from that home at 14 with cigarette burns and broken bones, placed in foster care where she struggled to understand what normal looked like because she'd never experienced it. He moved closer to the jury, lowered his voice as if sharing something confidential. When her sister Jennifer died, Kate stepped up because these children needed someone. And where was Daniel Ashford during this time? The prosecution mentioned he was grieving, that he was running his company. What they didn't emphasize was that he was absent. 247 days of travel in 14 months. Video calls instead of bedtime stories. Money instead of presents. Jameson's face registered measured sympathy. Did Kate make mistakes? Yes. Was she sometimes too strict in her discipline? Perhaps. Did she use methods we might not agree with in this room? Possibly. But she was a woman overwhelmed. Caring alone for two traumatized children while their father built his business empire on the other side of the world. He paused for effect. "The prosecution will show you edited footage." Cherry-picked moments. Coached testimony from a child who's been told what to say by a father drowning in guilt. But I ask you to see the whole picture. To understand that Kate Morrison is not a criminal. She's a victim herself, who did her best in an impossible situation created by Daniel Ashford's choices. He returned to his seat. The opening statements complete, the battle lines drawn. Price called Dr. Sarah Chen first, established her credentials, her relationship to the family, her examination of the children 2 weeks after Daniel discovered the abuse. Chen was clinical and precise. She presented growth charts that showed Lily's dramatic weight loss, photographs of bruises with detailed explanations of their patterns and ages, medical terminology that translated horror into language that sounded objective but landed with devastating impact. This bruising pattern here, here, and here is consistent with an adult hand gripping a child's upper arm with significant force. The multiple colors indicate different ages. This one approximately 3 weeks old. This one perhaps 10 days. This one fresh within the last 72 hours. She showed images of Owen, pointed out visible ribs, hollow cheeks, the severe diaper rash left untreated. Failure to thrive is the medical term we use when an infant's growth and development lag significantly behind normal milestones without clear organic cause. Owen showed classic signs. His weight had plateaued for 4 months. His development was delayed. He exhibited behaviors consistent with chronic neglect and food insecurity. Jameson's cross-examination tried to suggest other causes: picky eating, growth spurts that plateau naturally, normal variation in child development. Chen shut down each attempt with calm authority backed by decades of pediatric experience. Patricia Martinez testified next. 20-year CPS veteran. She described interviewing Lily 3 weeks after Daniel filed his complaint. Used dolls to help the child demonstrate and explain. Recorded everything with Lily's and Daniel's consent. Price played portions of the audio. The courtroom listened to Lily's small voice describing basement darkness and wooden spoon strikes and hunger that made her stomach hurt so much she couldn't sleep. Several jurors wiped their eyes. One woman in the back row made no attempt to hide her tears. Judge Santos called a 10-minute recess. Mrs. Rodriguez took the stand after the break. Second-grade teacher, 23 years experience. She produced the note from her desk drawer. 3 sentences in a 7-year-old's careful printing asking for help that never came. Price had it marked as evidence, passed it to the jury, watched their faces as they read words no child should have to write. Rodriguez's voice broke when she explained mentioning the note to Kate, explained believing the smooth explanations, explained failing to report it formally because wealthy families were complicated and surely someone else was paying attention. I will regret that decision for the rest of my life. A child asked for help and I failed her. The guilt in her voice was genuine and terrible. A reminder that the system had failed at every level. More witnesses followed in rapid succession. The neighbor who called CPS and watched the case get closed. The mailman who saw bruises. The grocery delivery driver who witnessed desperate hunger. Each one adding weight to a picture that became more damning with each testimony. Then Price stood. The prosecution would like to play compiled footage from the Ashford residence security system. Judge Santos looked at the jury. This footage contains disturbing images of child abuse. If anyone needs a break at any point, raise your hand and we'll pause. The lights dimmed. A screen descended. The first clip began. The timestamp showed a date 6 months earlier. The second-floor hallway. Kate and Lily visible in frame. Lily holding a glass of water. Her hands trembled slightly. The glass tipped. Water spilled on the marble floor. Kate's reaction was instantaneous. Her hand lashed out, struck Lily across the face with enough force to knock the child sideways. Lily's cry was audible through the audio. Kate grabbed her arm, fingers digging in, mouth moving in words the camera didn't capture, but body language made clear. Fury. Disproportionate rage directed at a small mistake made by a grieving child. The clips continued. 10 minutes of carefully selected footage that showed the full scope of 14 months compressed into undeniable evidence. Kate dragging Lily toward the basement door. The child's resistance. The door closing. The lock engaging. Lily's fists pounding against wood. Her screams getting hoarse, then fading to sobs, then silence. The timestamp showed 2 hours passing before Kate returned to unlock the door. Dinner time footage. Kate eating a full meal at the kitchen table. Lily across from her with a piece of bread and a glass of water. The child's eyes following every bite, hunger written across her face in lines too old for 7 years. Owen in his crib crying. The camera showed the nursery door from the hallway. No one came. The timestamp advanced. 1 hour. 2 hours. The crying grew weaker, more sporadic, finally stopped. A baby learning that need brought no response. The final clip was Kate on her phone in the living room. Audio clear enough to catch every word. Just maintain this another 6 months until I can file for custody. Once I access that trust fund, putting up with these brats will have been worth it. Her laugh was bright and careless. The laugh of someone who saw children as obstacles to endure rather than humans to protect. The screen went dark. The lights came up. The courtroom was silent except for muffled crying from multiple jurors and gallery observers. Price let the silence sit for a long moment before speaking. The defense will tell you this is taken out of context. I ask you, what context makes it acceptable to strike a child for spilling water? To lock a 7-year-old in darkness for hours? To discuss their trust fund while denying them food? Jameson objected. Judge Santos sustained it, but the damage was done. The jury had seen, had heard, had confronted evidence that left little room for alternative interpretation. Court recessed for lunch. Daniel sat in a small conference room with Price and Crawford, unable to eat, unable to think beyond the afternoon session, beyond Lily's testimony, beyond watching his daughter relive trauma in front of strangers while he sat powerless to stop it. She's ready. Price's voice was gentle but firm. She knows what to expect. She knows she can ask for breaks. She knows you'll be right there. And she wants to do this. She told me this morning that other kids deserve to be safe. That's incredibly brave for someone her age. Daniel nodded. Couldn't speak past the tightness in his throat. The afternoon session began. Price stood. The prosecution calls Lily Ashford. The courtroom doors opened. Lily entered holding Dr. Chen's hand. She wore a blue dress that Jennifer had bought her before she got sick. Her hair was pulled back with a simple clip. She looked impossibly small, walking down the aisle toward the witness stand. Daniel's heart clenched watching her. 7 years old, and facing something most adults would find terrifying. But her shoulders were back. Her chin lifted slightly. Scared, but doing it anyway. She was sworn in, sat in the witness chair. Her feet didn't touch the floor. A bailiff brought a cushion to boost her up slightly. Price approached with a gentle smile. Lily, do you know what it means to tell the truth? Yes. It means saying what really happened, even if it's scary. Are you going to tell the truth today? Yes. Do you see your Aunt Kate in this courtroom? Lily's eyes found Kate at the defense table. Kate stared back. For a moment, neither moved. Then Lily's gaze didn't waver. Yes, that's her. Price began with easy questions. Established Lily's age, her school, her relationship to Kate, built comfort through routine before moving toward harder territory. Lily, can you tell the jury what it was like living with Aunt Kate after your mother died? Lily's hands were folded in her lap. She spoke clearly but quietly, practiced at making herself heard without raising her voice. At first, she was nice. When Mommy first got really sick and then died, Aunt Kate gave me hugs and made dinner and helped me with homework. But then Daddy had to travel for work a lot, and things got different. Different how? Lily paused, seemed to be choosing words carefully. She said I was bad, that I ate too much and talked too much and cried too much. She said I was the reason Daddy had to leave so much because I was too much work. She said if I was better and quieter and didn't need so many things, maybe Daddy would want to stay home. Did you believe her? Yes. Because Daddy was gone a lot, and Aunt Kate was there every day. So I thought she must be right. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even the court reporter's fingers paused on the keys. Did Aunt Kate ever hit you? Lily touched her face unconsciously. Yes. If I spilled things or made noise, or if Owen cried and I tried to help him. Sometimes even if I was just there, she'd get mad and hit me. Where did she hit you? Lily touched her cheek, her arms, her hands. Mostly here on my face, sometimes on my arms, on my hands with the wooden spoon if I reached for food without asking. Once on my back when I couldn't move the furniture fast enough. Price let that sit for a moment. Did you tell anyone? Lily's voice got smaller. I tried. I wrote a note to my teacher, but Aunt Kate found out. That night she locked me in the basement for a really long time. It was dark, and I couldn't see anything, and I was so scared. She said if I told again, bad things would happen. That Owen would get taken away to an orphanage and I'd never see him again. That Daddy would believe her instead of me because grown-ups stick together and kids lie. Did you believe that too? Yes. So I stopped trying to tell. I just tried to be better so she wouldn't get so angry. Price walked closer to the witness stand. Lily, Why are you telling us now? Lily was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was stronger. Because Daddy came home early one day and saw what was happening. And he told me it wasn't my fault. That Aunt Kate was wrong. That he loved me. She looked directly at the jury for the first time. And Dr. Morrison, my counselor, she said that telling the truth protects other kids. That maybe if I'm brave and tell what happened, Aunt Kate won't be able to hurt other children. So I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. Because that's what my mommy said brave people do. Multiple jurors were crying openly now. Judge Santos looked like she was fighting to maintain composure. Daniel gripped the armrest of his seat so hard his knuckles went white. Price asked a few more questions. Details about the basement, about meals, about Owen's care. Lily answered each one with heartbreaking honesty. Then Price returned to her table. No further questions. Robert Jameson stood. Daniel's every muscle tensed. This was the moment they'd prepared for. The moment Jameson would try to discredit a 7-year-old child in front of a jury. Jameson approached slowly, kept his voice gentle. Lily, you love your father very much, don't you? Yes. And you want to live with him, not with Aunt Kate, correct? Yes. So if you say bad things about Aunt Kate, that helps you get what you want, doesn't it? Lily looked confused. I don't understand. Jameson tried again. If the jury believes Aunt Kate is bad, you get to stay with Daddy. So you have a reason to make things sound worse than they really were. Understanding dawned on Lily's face. Then something else, something that looked like disappointment that an adult would think this way. I'm not making it worse. She really did hurt me. A lot. Without prompting, she pushed up her sleeve, showed faded scars on her forearm from the wooden spoon strikes, marks that had healed but left traces. I'm telling the truth because it's what really happened. I don't know how to make you believe me, but I'm not lying. Jameson's face showed brief frustration before he regained control. He pushed harder, which was a tactical error he'd realized too late. Isn't it possible you misunderstood? That Aunt Kate was trying to discipline you, and you remember it as being worse than it was? Lily looked straight at the jury. Locking me in the dark and telling me nobody loved me isn't discipline. That's being mean, and I didn't misunderstand. I was there. It happened to me. I remember all of it. The jury's body language shifted completely. They'd been neutral, assessing. Now they leaned toward Lily, toward belief, toward a child who spoke with simple honesty that carried more weight than any rehearsed testimony could. Jameson realized he'd made things worse. He wrapped up quickly. No further questions. Lily was excused. She climbed down from the witness stand and walked directly to Daniel. He met her halfway, swept her into his arms, carried her from the courtroom while she buried her face in his shoulder. In the hallway, he held her while she shook. Not crying now, just releasing the adrenaline, the fear, the courage it had taken to do what she'd just done. You were so brave. So incredibly brave. I'm so proud of you. Is it over? Almost, baby. Almost. The prosecution rested. Judge Santos called a 15-minute recess before the defense would begin its case. Jameson's strategy became clear quickly. He called character witnesses for Kate. People who had known her as an adult, who testified to her volunteer work, her apparent kindness, her stated love for her sister and nieces and nephews. Surface-level impressions that meant nothing against the weight of evidence, but which attempted to create alternative narrative. Overwhelmed woman doing her best. Trauma victim struggling with her own demons. Someone who deserved compassion rather than condemnation. Then he called Kate herself. She took the stand wearing the mask again, composed, sad, contrite. Jameson led her through questions designed to humanize her. Tell the jury about your childhood. Kate's voice trembled slightly. My mother beat me every single day. I have scars from cigarette burns on my back, belt marks on my legs. I was taken away when I was 14 because it was so bad. Placed in foster care. Moved between homes. Never felt safe. Never learned what normal parenting looked like because I never experienced it. When Jennifer died, and you offered to help with the children, what was your intent? I wanted to protect them, to give them stability, to be there for them when Daniel couldn't be. I thought I was helping. I thought structure and discipline was what they needed. Her eyes filled with tears. I was wrong. I didn't realize I was repeating the patterns I'd experienced. I became what I hated. I hurt them, and I can never take that back. But I swear my intent was never malicious. I thought I was raising them properly. I didn't know another way. It was a good performance, sincere sounding. Some jury members looked sympathetic. Then Catherine Price stood for cross-examination and systematically destroyed everything Kate had built. Ms. Morrison, you testified you were trying to help these children. Let me read you an email from your account dated 6 months ago. She read slowly, clearly. To Melissa Chen. Quote, these brats are exhausting, but the $5 million trust fund will make it worth it. Once I get custody, I can finally live the life Jennifer stole from me. Might send them to boarding school. Out of sight, out of mind. End quote. Kate's face went pale. That was taken out of context. I was venting to a friend. I didn't mean it seriously. You joke about calling children brats? About sending traumatized kids to boarding school after stealing their inheritance? I was frustrated. It doesn't mean I didn't care about them. Price pulled out more emails. Read them methodically. Each one revealing calculation, resentment, premeditation, plans for custody, discussions of the trust fund, complaints about dealing with the children until she could access money. You told this jury you didn't know another way to parent. But these emails show you knew exactly what you were doing. You planned to gain custody to access money. You stole from their accounts. You researched custody laws. You fabricated incident reports about Daniel's fitness. That's not a traumatized woman making mistakes. That's a criminal targeting vulnerable children. Kate's composure cracked. I did care about them. In my own way. I was there when Daniel wasn't. Your way involved starvation, physical abuse, psychological torture. You locked a 7-year-old in a basement and told her she was worthless. That's not care. That's cruelty. Price's voice was hard now, prosecutorial and unforgiving. You had 14 months to ask for help, to tell Daniel you were struggling, to step away if overwhelmed. Instead, you chose to abuse, steal, and manipulate. You forged documents, threatened children into silence, and did it all for money you had no right to. That's not someone deserving sympathy. That's someone who belongs in prison. No further questions. Kate left the stand looking smaller somehow. The mask shattered. The defense rested. Closing arguments were mercifully brief. Price reminded the jury of evidence, of testimony, of footage that couldn't be explained away. Jameson tried once more to paint complexity and mitigation. Both sat. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. Daniel spent them in a conference room, unable to sit still, unable to think, unable to do anything but wait, while 12 strangers decided whether justice would be served. At 6:43 in the evening, the bailiff announced a verdict had been reached. The courtroom filled again. Daniel sat in his front row seat. Lily and Owen were with Dr. Chen in a secure room, protected from this final moment until it was over. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Kate. That was a sign, Crawford whispered. A good sign. The foreperson stood. A woman in her 50s, the retired nurse. Her voice was steady. On count 1, child abuse in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Kate's sharp intake of breath was audible. Count 2, child abuse in the first degree on a second child guilty. Count 3, child neglect guilty. Count 4, theft guilty. Count 5, conspiracy to commit fraud guilty. The counts continued. Guilty on every single one. Kate collapsed forward, head in hands, shoulders shaking. Jameson put a hand on her arm. The deputies moved closer. Daniel felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Just the weight of 14 months that couldn't be undone no matter what verdict a jury delivered. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Kate was remanded into custody immediately, led from the courtroom in handcuffs. Daniel watched her go and thought about Jennifer, about promises made and broken, about children who would carry scars long after legal proceedings ended. The sentencing hearing brought victim impact statements. Daniel read one he'd written about finding Lily's diary, about the moment he understood how catastrophically he'd failed, about the guilt that would never fully leave him, but which he'd transform into presence, into protection, into being the father his children deserved. Dr. Chen spoke about the medical evidence, about malnutrition that could have caused permanent damage if left unchecked much longer, about psychological trauma that would require years of therapy to address. Patricia Martinez discussed cycles of abuse, about the importance of breaking them through accountability, about sending clear messages that victimization doesn't excuse victimizing others. Then Lily asked to speak. It wasn't planned. She'd told no one she wanted to. But when Judge Santos asked if anyone else wished to make a statement, Lily stood. "May I, Your Honor?" Judge Santos looked surprised, but nodded. Lily walked to the front of the courtroom, stood where lawyers had stood, looked at Kate for the first time since the trial ended. "Aunt Kate, you told me Daddy didn't want me. But he does. You told me I had to be perfect. But he loves me even when I'm not." Her voice was clear, strong. The voice of someone who had found words for things that had been voiceless. "You told me if I told the truth, bad things would happen. But telling the truth made the bad things stop. I forgive you because Mommy said holding on to anger is like drinking poison. But I don't want to see you ever again." She paused, started to walk away, then turned back. "And if you ever meet other kids, please get help so you don't hurt them too." She returned to her seat. The courtroom was silent except for muffled crying from multiple observers. Judge Santos took a long moment before speaking. Her voice was thick with emotion, but steady. "Out of the mouths of babes comes wisdom that shames us all. Ms. Morrison, I've read your history. I sympathize with the child you were. The abuse you suffered was unconscionable, and the system failed you badly." She leaned forward. "But that doesn't excuse the adult you became. You had choices. You chose greed over compassion, cruelty over care. You targeted vulnerable children and exploited their trust for financial gain. That's not someone struggling. That's someone who committed deliberate, calculated crimes." The sentence came down hard and final. 15 years in state prison. No possibility of parole for 7 years. Full restitution of $89,000 plus damages. Permanent restraining order prohibiting any contact with Lily or Owen Ashford. Any future children you may have contact with will be monitored by the state. The gavel fell. Kate was led away. Daniel gathered his children and went home to begin the long process of healing. 5 years passed like pages turning in a book Daniel never expected to read. Chapters of recovery written one day at a time, one small victory at a time, one moment of peace at a time, until those moments accumulated into something that resembled normal life. The house in Cambridge was smaller than the Beacon Hill mansion, but filled with more warmth than that marble showplace had ever held. Morning light streamed through windows onto a kitchen table, where 3 people ate breakfast together every single day without exception. Lily at 12 was healthy and vibrant. Soccer team captain. Honor roll student. Hair the color Jennifer's had been. Smile that came easier now, reached her eyes more often. The nightmares had faded from 4 times a week to once a month to almost never. She still had moments. Still sometimes hoarded food when stressed, still occasionally woke afraid. But the bad days were outnumbered by good ones now. Owen at 6 was outgoing and bright, and mostly unburdened by conscious memories of the worst period. His trauma surfaced sometimes in behaviors his therapist helped them recognize and address. But he was a happy child who climbed into his father's lap to read books, who played elaborate imaginary games with his sister, who trusted easily because he'd learned trust was safe. Daniel at 40 had gray in his hair, but lightness in his step. He ran his company as chairman 3 days a week from a home office. Never traveled overnight. Never missed school pickup or bedtime or any of the 1,000 small moments that built childhood. The board had adjusted. The shareholders had adapted. Turned out empire building mattered less than being present for pancakes. Saturday morning, December. Light snow falling outside. Lily stood at the stove making pancakes while Owen set the table with careful concentration. Daniel poured orange juice into 3 glasses. Routine perfected through repetition. Family choreography that felt like home. "Can I put extra chocolate chips in mine?" Owen's question was casual. No anxiety underneath it. No fear the answer would be no. "Sure, buddy. There's always enough." Lily's response came easy. Abundance, not scarcity. Plenty, not deprivation. Small words carrying weight they shouldn't have to carry, but which marked how far they'd come. They ate together, talked about plans for the day, park after breakfast if the snow stopped, maybe see a movie later. Normal weekend plans for a normal family that had earned its normalcy through fire and emerged scarred but whole. That afternoon, Lily spoke at a children's advocacy fundraiser. She'd started doing this when she turned 11. Telling her story in age-appropriate ways designed to raise awareness and money for organizations that protected kids like she'd been. Daniel sat in the audience and watched his daughter stand at a podium, addressing a room full of adults with poise that amazed him every time. "When I was 7, someone I trusted hurt me. I was too scared to speak up because I thought no one would believe a kid over a grown-up. But I learned something important. Silence protects abusers. Truth protects children." Her voice carried clearly through the banquet hall. "If you're a kid and someone is hurting you, tell someone. Keep telling until someone listens. You deserve to be safe. And if you're an adult, really listen when kids talk. Believe them, because kids don't lie about being scared." She got a standing ovation, raised $15,000 that afternoon for programs that trained teachers and doctors and social workers to recognize abuse signs and intervene effectively. Driving home, Owen asleep in the back seat. Lily looked at her father. "Do you think Mommy would be proud of me?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Baby, she's so proud of you she probably tells every angel in heaven about you. And I'm proud of you too, every single day." That evening they looked through photo albums. Jennifer's face smiled from countless pictures. They kept her memory alive through stories and traditions and the certainty that she remained part of their family, even in absence. Lily found a picture of herself at 5, chubby-cheeked and bright-eyed, before cancer, before loss, before Kate. I look so different now. You look strong now. Brave. Like someone who survived something hard and didn't let it destroy her. Is that good? It's amazing. But I wish you didn't have to be that strong. I wish I'd protected you better. Lily was quiet for a moment. You made mistakes, but you fixed them. And you stayed. That's what matters. Later, after both children were asleep, Daniel sat by his bedroom window looking out at Cambridge streets dusted with snow, made the same promises he'd been making for 5 years. Promises that had become prayer, had become practice, had become the foundation of how he lived now. I will be present. I will pay attention. I will never again assume everything is fine without verifying. I will be the father they deserve. Sunday morning. Park. Cold air but bright sun. Lily and Owen ran ahead, throwing snowballs at each other, laughing, playing with the unself-consciousness of children who felt safe. Daniel watched them and felt something close to peace, not happiness. The guilt would always live in him like a second heartbeat. But purpose. Redemption measured in daily choices. Love expressed through presence. Lily tackled Owen gently into a snowbank, both of them giggling. Owen threw snow that mostly missed. Lily helped him up. They ran toward their father, calling for him to join. He did. Caught Owen in a hug that lifted the boy off the ground, pulled Lily close with his other arm, held both children while snow fell around them, and Sunday stretched ahead, full of ordinary moments that were anything but ordinary for a family that had earned them through surviving the worst and choosing to heal. The park was full of families. Normal weekend scene. Parents pushing strollers, kids on swings, dogs chasing balls. Daniel looked around and wondered how many of them carried secrets. How many children behind bright smiles were hiding fear? How many adults weren't paying close enough attention? He caught Lily's eye. She seemed to read his thoughts. You can't save everyone, Daddy. But you saved us. That's enough. They stayed until the cold drove them home, made hot chocolate, watched a movie curled on the couch under blankets. Owen fell asleep against Daniel's side. Lily leaned on his other shoulder. Perfect, ordinary moment that used to be impossible. As credits rolled, Lily spoke quietly. I'm glad you came home early that day, even though it was scary. I'm glad you saw. Me too, baby. Me too. That night he tucked them both in, read stories, sang songs Jennifer used to sing, stood in each doorway for a moment watching them sleep, making sure they were real, safe, his. In his own room, finally, he pulled out a photo of Jennifer, spoke to it the way he did sometimes when the house was quiet and he needed to say things aloud. I kept my promise. I'm here. I'm present. They know they're loved, and they're going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside, 3 people who had survived the worst slept peacefully. Tomorrow would bring more healing, more growth, more ordinary moments strung together into extraordinary recovery. But tonight, there was just this. Just safety. Just family. Just the promise of morning and the certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. Daniel lay in darkness and listened to his house breathe. 2 children sleeping soundly, no crying, no fear. No, just the peaceful silence of home. It was enough. It was everything.